不会看我那边子。Man, that'd take a while. And this is how you come down. Alright, was a little better than the river background, isn't it? I know sometimes I get carried away. It doesn't sound as bad when you're on the side of the river as it does once you get it online. Oops. Anyway, our friend Jeff, he owns Cowboy Wildlife Photography. He's been at it for quite a while. He's got a lot of really wicked pictures of wildlife. And he gave me this framed up picture when I left his place and went home, so I chucked it on the wall. That's not his permanent place yet, but I put it on there just to show it off. What else? Over half of you are hunters. And a lot of people keep messaging me and want to hear the story on that mule deer on the wall. The one on the left here is a big buck I shot years ago in the interior of British Columbia, and there's 187 inches on his head. He grows something like 193 or something. And the mount was getting all old and faded, so when I was in the middle of moving, I tore the antlers out of the mount, and I've got another large cape from this one here, and my other friend, the taxidermist, has another big large cape, and I'm going to get that mounted up again. So that's the story on that buck. Questions answered. Another early morning, I made Sarah get up at 5 o'clock this morning and come steelhead fishing with me. And I managed to catch a cool fish this morning. Had another one on. And then we're going to be in a fishing derby this weekend, so. Anyway, enough babbling. Voices getting heard, alright? Voices getting heard. This is my old phone, but it's newer emails saved. I should go down the list here first. What's this? No subject. Okay, hold on. Let me mark this as red so I don't screw up again. This is titled, no title. Happy Easter weekend to all who share this interest in truth and knowledge that is being suppressed from each and every one of us. I pray this finds you all well. Before I jump into this and share what happened to me at a very young age, I want to explain a very important fact that will hopefully explain why I reacted to it the way I did, as in just moving on and forgetting about it as though it were like an ordinary everyday occurrence. To this day, I regret how I reacted towards my uncle, Oscar. He was our favorite uncle and babysitter when he came around to visit. He always played with us kids, took us to the playground, walked us to the store. No matter how tired and exhausted we made him, he would stop playing with us until we would stop. He was a very good soul, patient and kind, and not once have I ever heard him raise his voice to anyone or anything. He was the only one who set the standard for me of what a good uncle is. He set the bar. And since I have no children of my own, all I have are my nieces and nephews and their children who wish to practice that high standard. And I have to say, without question, I know each and every one of my nieces and nephews and their children as well have all labeled me as their favorite uncle. I wear this as a badge of honor. I'd like to explain firstly that I grew up on a CFB, Canadian Forces base in southwestern Manitoba. It is no longer there, but the memories of it, as well as all the rumors, will carry on with those of us who've experienced the many hauntings this CFB held. It was a well-known belief that the majority of the houses on this CFB were haunted. And after the base had been shut down and houses sold and removed from their foundations to be taken to other small towns or cities, that belief grew because others were now experiencing paranormal events elsewhere. Creepy. My parents, siblings, and I seemed to live in the epicenter of all this weirdness. It was as though our house was dead center of it all. I could write and share a bunch of experiences that I've had there, as well as things that my siblings and parents had seen and been through, but it would take too long. I just want to let everyone know that I was born and grew up there until the age of 6. And though some things were unexplainable and weird, and could be simply shrugged at as you carry on with your day, very few things were scary or frightening for me. I guess you could say that I'd been used to strange things happening. It took a lot to scare me, even to this day. I don't like being afraid of anything, especially when it's something unknown. I've always been the type of person who would stand their ground rather than run. I would rather like to know what it is opposing me or trying to scare me. Then I would make the decision of whether I should escape or not. Anyway, that was my environment growing up. It was being raised in a loving Christian home on a closing CFB just southwest of a small town called Rivers in Manitoba. I had 2 brothers, 3 sisters, all passed away except for my oldest brother. Can't remember if I had shared that in my previous emails. We were all close. Previous emails. One summer day, I believe, I must have been 3 years old, maybe on the verge of turning 4. We all jumped in the family station wagon to go berry picking in the many surrounding woods that circled Rivers. We'd pick in one forested area and then drive to another and then do the same all throughout the day. This was routine. We did this every year since I can remember. I enjoyed the forested areas that had creeks and small brooks, especially because they allowed for my brother and one of my sisters to catch fish with their bare hands. It was always a blast. I always enjoyed the outdoors or the real world and always felt a true connection to it. If I was away from it for a week, I would get a yearning to return to it and would bug my dad to take me hunting or fishing, or harass my mom to take us berry picking. I just truly couldn't get enough of the outdoors as a kid, well, even now. Okay, this day of berry picking was just like every other day that we picked berries. There was my mom, my 3 sisters, and my 2 older brothers. I was the youngest of the family, or the baby, as my mom would say to others. We've done this many times before without any incident, and so had no reason to think anything different would occur. Adventure dogs chewing on an antler beside me. I can't remember how long we were actually out there in the woods picking Saskatoons. I just know we were there for a while. I was complaining to my mom about being thirsty. It was a very hot day. She asked out loud if anyone had water with them, and my oldest brother said he had some. My 3 eldest siblings were usually further away from our mom, whereas us 3 younger siblings were always closer to my mom. We were always within sight and earshot of each other. And so, when my oldest brother said he had water with him, my mom told me to go see him. I went and grabbed the water and drank. I stayed with him for a bit and helped him fill his bucket until he got tired of all my questions and talking and told me to go back and help Mom. I felt rejected and slowly walked towards where my mom was. I remember walking and trying to catch a glimpse of my mother through the bushes and brush that were taller than me. I could hear her humming, but couldn't see her. I heard something to my left say, "Psst." So I stopped. I couldn't see anyone, so I kept slowly walking. looking down. Again I heard something, but this time it was a whisper. A voice through the bushes and trees whispered, "Hey." I stopped again, looked to my left, but nothing. No one. Thought maybe it could have been my oldest brother, so I turned and looked at him, but he was focused on picking Saskatoons. I looked back to where the whisper came from and still couldn't see anything. Thought I may have taken several steps when I heard it go, "Psst," again. And as I stopped and turned to my left, I see my Uncle Oscar coming up from behind the bushes, except he didn't look right. He was bigger than usual. He was walking hunched over, and he wasn't wearing his glasses. He immediately scooped me up in his hand and held me under his arm between his body. He carried me the same way he had come out. I couldn't really think clearly. I was in shock. I was being squeezed and couldn't really breathe, and the hair on his arms and body were scratching me along with the bushes. I remember wanting to cry because of the fear and the pain, but I couldn't because I couldn't really catch my breath long enough to do so. I remember wishing that he'd put me down because of how much it hurt. I can't remember how long or how far I was carried. All I recall of being carried is the pain of being squeezed and how difficult it was to breathe, and the panic that was building up inside of me. I can't remember if I had seen hairy legs and feet or jeans and shoes. I do remember finally stopping. There was this really loud noise, like the crack of thunder. I was let go or dropped. I remember being so relieved to breathe, but I was also scared. When I was finally able to breathe normally, I began to cry. I wanted my mom. I knew something wasn't right about the situation I was in, and I needed my mom. I seen my uncle yelling loudly. And it hurt my ears. I couldn't see who he was yelling at, but I remember hearing loud cracks of thunder. It was still a sunny day. I can't recall what happened after I seen my uncle walk into the woods, clearly mad and upset, but I do recall being in a woman's arms, cradled, being carried gently back to my mom. I've never seen this woman in my life before, but she was a very beautiful native woman. Every time she would look down at me while she carried me, she would smile this glorious smile that would ease the aching I was feeling. I felt so safe in her arms. She sat me back down on my feet and pointed towards my mom. She didn't say a word, but I knew that she meant what she meant by pointing. She walked away back towards where I came from, and I heard everyone calling for me. I yelled for my mom, and when I had seen her coming, I felt relief, and I began to cry again. I still remember seeing my siblings' faces, and were all mad at me. They were blamed for not watching me. When we got home, I got a spanking from my dad for running off and getting lost, and for lying and trying to blame it on my uncle, but I wasn't lying. I was telling the truth. I couldn't understand why they kept telling me that Uncle Oscar was far away and wasn't there. I had no idea or where Winnipeg was. I just remember being so mad at my uncle for lying and not telling everyone the truth that he was there in the woods with a woman. Even though I still loved my Uncle Oscar afterwards, my trust in him was gone. I wish that I could tell him how sorry I am for thinking that it was him, because I know now that it wasn't. I know that whatever it was used his image. That's a little freaky, because he was the most trusted and loved adult that I had known at the time. What the F? Over the past few years, I've been wondering about being tagged, or whatever it is they do to certain people. But sometimes I wonder if they are the ones that tag us, or are we just unique human beings that have a different vibration than others, in which these beings can tell. That's where I'm leaning. What makes us so unique? Why us? That's the big question. One of them. I have so many questions, so many puzzle pieces. I think my number one puzzle piece is, why do I keep forgetting that these incidents have happened to me? Whereas other paranormal experiences I can't seem to forget no matter how much I would like to. Why do I forget such things in such a short amount of time? Am I doing it subconsciously? Is an outside force or entity making me forget? So many questions. Oh, I do have to add, that time my friend and I walked up on one of these beings on my brother's quarry in New Hampshire, and after being frozen stiff for a few seconds, both my friend and I and the Sasquatch being, and then I ran after it in the dark through the woods. I don't know if you recall my email of that encounter. But anyway, after 25 years since that experience, though we have remained friends, we haven't talked. Since my mother's passing in 2009, I've only received a letter from him and 2 emails, though I have written him several times asking him about that encounter. He's failed to answer. Well, in mid-January, he had heard that I was not in a very good place, emotionally, mentally, because of the losses in my family in such a short period, as well as the house fire that took mostly everything, and the 2 miscarriages my ex and I had. Yes, it rains for me. When it rains for me, it pours. He called me through FaceTime on Facebook. First, I thought it was my ex because she was in Calgary and we were going through all the things she had left behind, so I thought it was her, and it wasn't. It was my old friend's mother's account. When I answered, all I could see was my friend's face, a face I haven't seen since 2001. We talked about everything that I'm going through and about the good old days. Then after an hour or so, I brought it up. I asked him about that night, asked him what he remembered seeing. He gave me this look, like he wanted to punch me through the phone screen. Excuse me, even though he isn't a guy that could harm a fly. He said he was hoping that I wouldn't bring it up. He said he had to be careful in answering, and he looked around the room to make sure no one was in that room he was in, and he was about to say something but stopped himself. He turned around and asked me what I remember happening. So I went through the details and gave him my account. And he then said that he remembers everything that I explained, but he said that he couldn't see what I was looking at because I was in the way. He said all he saw was a tall something standing about 20 feet in front of me and was waiting for me to do something. Then he said he was surprised to see me run after it. He left it at that. I know he didn't want to say it due to his government job, but he did say that my account is what he remembers happening. He just wouldn't say the details. In a way I felt let down, but in another way I understood why. I also asked him if he remembered the next day after that sighting, or if he forgot, and he said he totally forgot. He said he didn't remember it until he had read my letters years ago. I asked him if he found that weird. How, after seeing a Sasquatch the night before, and then the next day not remembering it and talking about it. He was perplexed too. Before we said goodbye, I asked him if I could use his name if I ever decide to put all my experiences on paper and write a book, which is something I really want to do but don't have the means. He said yes. Knowing that we had seen was real, even though I knew it was real, was a huge relief because he was the first one to admit it. Everyone else that have seen these things with me, they either don't remember or say they don't want to talk about it. So yeah. I wish I could say I'm doing better since the house fire and brother's passing, but that would just be lying. But I do want to say thank you to everyone that has sent their condolences and prayers. There are many times where I thought of just throwing in the towel, but there are too many people out there that I love that would be hurt and devastated by such a thing, and I don't like hurting or disappointing anyone. There's so much love in this world yet to feel. Take care. Club of No Return. Wolfman, Johnny. Johnny, I wish nothing but luck to you, man, and you're right, you don't quit ever. Don't quit. There's no reasons to quit. You keep going. That was a lengthy email, but I'm certain that it feels good for you to get it off your chest, right? It sounds like a lot to be packing around, man. That's a lot. Bizarre. So bizarre. I wonder why the military base moved. Who knows, right? Okay, what's this one? Let's see. This is no title on it. Thanks for sending that in again, man. And make sure you do the book. You've got the means. You got a piece of paper. You got a screen on your phone or your computer. You've got the means. Just rip it off and start doing it. Start doing it. My name is Mark Blank. You can use my first name when sharing if you decide to share my story. I have more than one story about Sasquatch, but let's start with the first one. I'm willing to take a polygraph and can assure you what I tell you actually happened. I'm 60 years old and born in 1960. I have 2 brothers, one 14 months older and one 26 months younger. This story happened between 69 and 71. We're living in Lincoln City, Oregon. My dad had 3 river lots along the Siletz River, S-I-L-E-T-Z River, on the side, upstream about a mile from the highway bridge where the natural gas pipeline... Can't you just chew it? where the natural gas pipeline crosses the river. My dad bought a Honda 7 trail bike, new, that was gold color. 3-speed automatic. My brothers and I would take turns with it at the river's lots while our dad was fishing. Now, as we got more confident with riding the Honda 70, the area we rode expanded. The road to the property was built through wetlands like a dike road. We started riding clear to the main road, which was a gravel road back then, paved now. A spur road off of the dike road to the east was an access to the pipeline that went over the hills. Later, this road was the access to the cabin that was built for the movie Sometimes a Great Notion, also called Never Give an Inch. One day I decided on my turn with the Honda 70 I was going to go on that spur road. As I was going on the road, it started going uphill. I'd only been on level roads and was not happy with my choice of the spur road. I wanted to turn around, but needed to find a wide area to do so. I'm still a little kid. Turning around on an incline was out of the question, so I kept going. Ahead of me, I could see it was leveling out. Ahead of me, I could see it was leveling out at the next corner. That was going to be the spot to turn around. As I approached, about 100 feet away, I saw something cross the road. It was about 3 to 4 feet tall, black, and on 2 feet. It went into the wide area on the left, so now I don't want to stop there, and was a bit scared. As I approached the spot where it crossed, I looked to the left, and there it was, standing in front of a bigger one. It was like 7 or 8 feet tall, and had an arm holding across the chest area of... Hold on. Alright, take that antler over there. Sorry, you guys. I looked to the left and there it was, standing in front of a bigger one that was like 7 or 8 feet tall and had an arm holding across the chest area of the small one. The third one was like 10 or 11 feet tall. Yes, there were 3 of them together. I was really scared at this point and hit the throttle of the Honda and kept going. I went clear to the river and the road stopped there. I was trying to figure out how to get back to the river a lot as I could see it downstream from where I was at. I spent some time trying to figure out how to get back, but the only way is to go back the way I came from. But that sucks. A few hours had passed and the sun was going down, so I headed back down the way I came from. As I approached the wide spot where the 3 were at, I was glad they were gone. Before I got all the way back, I had to turn on the lights on the bike. About a quarter mile from the river, lots, I see something in the road. It was my dad looking for me. I stopped the bike and tried to talk to my dad. He was pissed and was scolding me for being gone so long. He finally stopped yelling at me and wanted to see what happened. I told him the story and called the 3 bears with the flat face. My dad got mad again and said, "Bears are not around here and they don't walk on 2 feet. Now I'm grounded." About a month or 2 later, my dad says, "I'm sorry for not believing you about the bears." He said he was at the river lots and saw a bear and took a picture of him. It was a cub bear in a tree. The camera he used was a Polaroid instant photo he used at work. He showed me the picture. And I said, "That's not what I saw." I told him the ones that I saw looked nothing like that. They had no snout, and a flattened nose, and on 2 feet, long arms, and a lot bigger. He got upset and said he doesn't want to hear it anymore. I never called them Bigfoot, as I never heard of Bigfoot or Sasquatch, but I know they were. This was my first encounter, and it was a close encounter, as when I was close as 40 to 50 feet away and could clearly see all 3 of them. They looked very close to one of your photos. I'll send it with this letter. Love what you do and appreciate your work, Mark. Okay, that photo was a drawing by, I think, Dave Plius' friend. Is it Harvey? Oh, my brain. Harvey Platt? From Northern California, I think, did those drawings. I hope, maybe. I'm probably wrong. But anyway, I'll share that photo, I hope, while I'm at it. That's a terrifying experience, man, for a kid. Especially 3 of them. Then you got, and of course, the road dead ends. Right out of a movie script, right? That sucks. But Thank you so much for sending that in. And keep sending them in. Keep sending them in. You got more? You send it in, alright? Get it all out. Okay, what's this one? It's a long one. I'm going in. Tell this is red. Alright, stupid colors. This is titled, Good Evening, Steve. I've just had to pause one of your videos so I could focus enough to hammer out a coherent email. It's been an unexpected and somewhat unusual pleasure to stumble onto your channel, which happened when I was doing some research on wolf and predation hunting / control here in our beautiful province. Coincidentally, we happen to recreate and spend time in very similar areas. I wouldn't all be surprised if we passed each other on Highway 40, the Duffy, or somewhere up in the Peace region. To give you a bit of background, I'm turning 30 this year and I've been a part of hunting since before I could walk. I was brought up in a hunting family. My father was a very accomplished hunter and fisherman, and my uncle, a guide / trapper / cowboy / logger / rancher from the Caribou, who, for the past decade, has been eating, breathing, and sleeping hardcore wolf / predation control. I spent more days in the bush than I can count. Done some guiding for moose in west central BC. And I always felt confident and competent being outdoors. I've been successful in many deer, elk, moose, and bear hunts, and been charged by more than one grizz and attacked by 4 cougars at the same time. Doubt this all you want, I'll share the story later if you're interested. Share it! I've read this, I think, quite a while ago. I'm going to keep going. I remember that part. The event that changed things for me and my outlook on being in remote parts of our wilderness here in BC happened in September of 2014. I was outside of Chetwynd hunting with 3 other friends and my uncle. Happened to have already killed a large 6x7 bull elk and was still looking for a big bull moose, so he decided to join us for a few days. I appreciated it. Not only for his accompanying 3 good horses in case we needed help extracting, but he is very, very familiar with the area and could help get us on the right foot. He knew the location of a fresh wallow and explained what he thought would be the best plan of attack. The extent of all this detail will make more sense later on in the story. The 4 of us woke up in the wall tent a few hours before sunup and discussed what our plans for the day were. I said I wanted to hit the wallow my uncle had told me about and see how fresh the sign was. And one of the guys said he would join me if it was all right. Made sense to split up in pairs, and the other 2 guys wanted to go in the opposite direction, so we agreed to do that and left camp in the dark after some breakfast and coffee. As we left, I could see my uncle was saddling a horse in the glow from the small fire. He had declined our offer to join the wall tent, opting for his usual bed of a sleeping bag on the ground beside the truck. It's thicker than shit in there. Go real slow and good luck, he said to me and my partner as we walked past. The brush was thick and the going was slow, and as we headed towards the area I thought the wallow to be, but that was okay as we were waiting for some light other than what our headlamps could offer. About 40 minutes of careful stalking in, we got to the shallow, moss-covered gully that would lead to a wallow. No elk there, but lots of fresh sign, so we decided to head deeper into the bush. We shortly started to bump elk, never getting close enough to get a real good look, but I could get a glimpse of hide here and there, which kept us quietly moving forward after the herd. Hoping for an opening where we could see longer than 40 to 50 yards, we kept on. I'm sure you're familiar with how much deadfall there can be on the forest floor in this country, but after an hour or 2 of walking further in the direction of the elk, it became clear there was more deadfall than standing timber. That sucks. Going through that shit sucks. And if you want it to suck the worst, take a horse through it. Ugh. Sucks. Chainsaw, walk 3 feet chainsaw with horses. The fallen pine and spruce were almost completely covered in thick, soft moss, which created a crisscross of tight ropes that could be traveled in almost eerie silence. That's handy. After more than an hour of this nearly noiseless walking, I finally see elk. The timber we're in now was more sparse. So much of it was laying horizontally, which allowed sight lanes of up to nearly 100 yards. I was out in front of blank, please don't use his name, and mentioned to him to stop and look at the cow in front of us about 60 yards away, and he nodded in acknowledgement. The cow looked uneasy and suddenly darted off almost directly away from us. And as she did, I caught more patches of tan hide in multiple directions all around us. And I realized we had made our way right amongst the herd. I wanted to get a look to see how far they had gone and if there were any more around. I made my way towards where I'd seen the last animal, and we came to an area that was more or less ringed by trees, and what I was looking down into was slightly lower in elevation and fairly open apart from a huge upturned tree, the roots of which had pulled up the moss floor with it. Quote, "There's an effing dude down there," end quote. As soon as I got to the edge of the trees, I raised my rifle up and started scanning for what I hoped would be a big steaming bull elk, and my eyes bugged out of my head. My eyes knew what they were seeing, but my rational brain told me that was incorrect. As I looked through my scope at a massive, dark, man-shaped figure. I could clearly see a large man-shaped being from the waist up, walking slowly across in front of me. Head forward in what I'd have to call a sneaking hunch-like creep. I lowered my rifle quickly. I looked back to blank in disbelief. Quote, "There's an effing dude down there," end quote, I whispered to him, still not being able to make any sense of what was taking place in front of me. My only rational thought was that it must be my uncle coming to find us. He was the only one to know where we might be, and he must be wearing a big black jacket. We both often wear those dark brown leather Outback duster jackets when riding, and I just wasn't seeing this correctly. The light in this area was all filtered by the canopy of the tall firs and blocked any direct sunlight, which made everything slightly fuzzy or hazy, so my eyes had to be playing tricks on me. I closed my eyes quickly and refocused on this huge dark figure quartering towards me about 50 yards away, and realized that it was not, in fact, just another hunter or human being at all for that matter. As I'm still trying to process and come to terms with what I'm looking at, Jameson makes his way beside me, and I indicate with a small head nod what I'm talking about. I remember a wave of confusion and disbelief filling my brain as we quietly crouched down and looked at each other in unison, each of us seeing each other's eyes doubling in size. I didn't know what to say. Even if I did, the last thing I wanted to do was make any sort of noise. Quote, "That's not an effing dude," end quote. He more mouthed than whispered to me. My head gently nodded a few times in agreement as I looked back towards what had us so bewildered. All I could now see was two massive legs, as thick as trees and covered in dark hair, about 40 yards away. This thing is now totally still, and I looked at Jameson, who points a finger towards the legs, and then his own, confirming we're both in agreement to what we're seeing. I was trying to stay level-headed, but my head was enthralled in a heavy battle with the reality unfolding in front of us. The pieces were coming together. The vision of the dark face I saw through my scope, the massive size, the thick black hair, and lack of clothes. Holy shit, we're looking at an effing Sasquatch. I can't describe exactly what emotion I was feeling the strongest at this time, and I was still confused. Actually, I think disbelief or shock would be more accurate, but also excited and curious, as well as uncertainty. What does one do when looking at the legs of a mythical creature within bow range? Well, I was hunting, and I was well armed, and thought that if I was so certain of what I saw and it wasn't a human, someone playing a prank on us, then the best way to prove what's in front of me would be to kill it. My rifle was ready to go with one in the chamber, and I slowly brought it up, and as quietly as possible flicked the safety off, until that barely audible click of the safety falling forward. The thing we were so intently watching hadn't moved an inch, but suddenly in a split second it shifted and both legs were now facing us directly. Out of the corner of my eye I could tell Jameson was seeing this too, but he gave me a tiny head nod telling me he understood what I was planning to do next. Through my scope, from the position I was crouched, I could only see from somewhere below the knee to around the beginning of its waist, so I knew I had to move to get a proper angle. Slowly and carefully as I could with my gun up, finger on the trigger and looking through the scope, I stood up, but as I did, a small twig snapped underneath my foot, and before I knew what was happening, the bush in front of us exploded. The being turned and bolted, moving faster than anything I'd ever seen before, and mowed through the brush and trees like a locomotive going down a track. Huge limbs and trees broke and cracked as it disappeared. It seemed like nothing hindered its departure. And to add to all the commotion, multiple patches of tan hide flashing made us aware that, surprisingly enough, during this whole, mostly silent standoff, the elk were in fact still all around us. At this point, we didn't know what to make of the situation at all. I was in some sort of a denial/shock, and then blank was very shaken up. Disturbed would probably be more accurate. After sitting there for some time quietly discussing what we had just encountered, we decided we should carefully and warily make our way back to camp, which we did so uneventfully. Not to say we weren't on high alert with guns loaded. No doubt. So this is my story. Apologize for the length and the detail, but I just felt like it was the best way to put yourself in my boots that day. I've always wondered what would have happened if I had settled the crosshairs between its eyes and squeezed off around. I just don't know. Listening to you tell other people's stories, I do find mine somewhat unique for a few reasons, and missed out on the full Sasquatch experience. I haven't really experienced any feelings of dread or fear until maybe it turned and faced us directly, making it clear in my mind that it was very aware of us. And even then I think it was maybe just some anxiety of the fate coming from my decision to shoot. I didn't smell anything strange, never made any kind of noise until it tore off away from us. We didn't find any footprints. I looked for tracks but couldn't see any sign. I have a theory regarding this. I believe we interrupted its hunt. It was so focused on the elk that it didn't notice our presence right away. And that's why I was able to get such a good look at it creeping along. I'm going to agree with you on that one, on that point. I'm no expert. I'm no researcher. And before this experience, I probably would have put myself in the Joe Rogan camp of non-believers. I doubted my own eyes, even though I had someone I trust my life with right beside me telling me I wasn't crazy for seeing what I'd seen. We didn't tell the other guys in camp, although I did go over to my uncle and asked him directly if he had ever seen or experienced anything in the bush that made absolutely no sense whatsoever. He looked at me with a smile and said, "So you saw a Sasquatch, eh?" I don't know if he was serious or not, but all I could do was nod my head. Unfortunately, he wasn't of any help at the time and only tried to convince me I saw a retarded bear walking around. I just know this isn't the case. There's actually more to this part, but I feel like this email is already too long, and I know you're a busy guy. So if you have any interest, I'd be more than happy to share via email, phone, or over a beer one day. I'd also like to offer my help. Not sure what that looks like, but I saw one of your latest videos. You were thinking of getting some help reading and replying to emails. Not sure what that looks like, just throwing it out there. I drive a black crew cab long bumper. I'm just going to leave out details here. I hunt elk around Chetwynd in mid-September usually. I'll be sure to tip my hat for paths cross. Go ahead and share all or any of this. Sorry, I know it's long. You're welcome to use my first name. Leave out my last name for professional reasons. I don't need my blank colleagues thinking I'm some whack job. But if you could leave out... Oh, dude. Oh, I did leave out his name. Okay, sorry. Sincerely... P.S. I'm not sure if you horse hunt around Chetwynd, but if you do, I'd bet you bumped into my uncle. He drives a white single cab flat deck with a horse rack and 3 horses. I know he said there's a few horse guys left in that country, and he's bumped into a few of them over the years. Small world, and I'll just figured I'd mention. Alright. Okay, we got it. Alright, so I did read that before. That's a couple years ago. And I wonder if you are still with us. Follow the channel if you are. I'd be curious to know, I mean, I hate I hate when people ask me where I hunt because I don't tell anybody. I just don't. I work my ass off to find my spots on my own without taking the spots from anybody else. So I'd like to keep them private. I would assure you, the emailer, that I'm not after your elk spot. I can take care of myself, but I am curious how to, within a couple miles, or maybe even a 5 mile square area of where that was. I would be curious to know exactly where that was in a way. Not quite exactly, but you know what I mean. I want to know how close or far away it was from where I used to hunt near Chetwynd, and then where we've had experiences there. I'd be very curious to know if that was close by. Doggy's getting a little anxious, wants to go outside and play. She did pretty good, I guess, for being a puppy and being cooped up in this room with me while I show her emails. I got her on a bit of a tether here to keep her in the room. Don't scratch my mural, doggy. But anyway, I gotta go in, get going on a bunch of things. We gotta take off tomorrow for 3 days. What day is it? Thursday. I have got to get the electrician lined up to finish the place off, grab some lights from the ceiling. I have to get another email out to Melba. And also try to pick a day where I'm going to try to phone Edgar and see what his status is. And then from there, I believe I'm going to get right into the Edgar emails, I hope, and get them organized and get ready to deliver and see if he has come to the limit on what he can share, will share, or even if he still was. I don't know. We're going to find out. And I got one. Crazy dog. I keep emailing in your experiences to share my story at howtohunt.com. Especially if it's going to help, right? It helps a lot of people. A lot of people express how much it helped them to get a share. And as well as sharing and helping them out, we're learning, right? We're learning. The second last email I read, the thunder and cracks. What's that about? Crack like thunder, right? So, sounds like he was scooped up by one of these beings. Heard a loud crack like thunder. Next thing you know, there's a female, quote, beautiful native lady there, end quote. Right? What's that sound from? What's happening when they heard that sound? Is it coincident? There's a loud crack and then there's another being there? See what I'm getting at? Maybe, possibly, you never know. But anyway, I got so much I'd like to talk about, but I gotta get going. And it's just, I'll admit it, this does kind of suck having the dog in here while I'm reading, because my attention's not fully on the emails. Anyway, now she's at Sarah's curtains. I gotta go. I'll be back shortly.